calling my phone like I'm locked up nonstop. From the plane to the
84 yards. Jonathan Jones.
Drugs, nah. I'm a pop star, not a doctor. Bitches calling my phone like I'm locked up nonstop.
All right, week 3. We get the Pats on the road this week at MetLife. First matchup against the Jets this season. Both teams coming in at 1-1. Aaron Rodgers has made it through 3 plays, so that's good for Jets fans. And Jacoby Brissett has made it through 2 games barely, and the Patriots are not 0-2, so that's a good sign. Coming in this game, first primetime game of the year for the Pats. You know, you'd like to say that they have a chance in this game, but the line, you took a glance at it, 6 points. And last week against Seattle, a game that they really should have won, the home opener. And personally, I just felt like in overtime, they played way too passive. You know, Ramondre has been their offense all season long, but still through 2 weeks, we have not seen enough out of the wide receivers. And Henry had a great game last week, but I've been a Drake May guy the whole time, and I understand, you know, starting Jacoby Brissett, but Pats fans are just ready to watch May go out there. And Copell, I know you were more on the start Jacoby side.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great point. I mean, obviously Drake May is by far the better quarterback than Jacoby Brissett. If anyone questions that, you don't know ball. Drake May definitely has the better arm. He's definitely the better quarterback. But like we discussed, you know, privately off the internet a couple of weeks ago, is, you know, it just depends on the offensive line. And that's just how I view it. I think the offensive line actually has been doing a fantastic job in the run game, which has shown in guys like Gibson and Ramondre Stevenson stats. When it comes to pass blocking, man, you're always seeing Brissett, you know, ducking and weaving and trying to, you know, run outside the pocket. It's just, you know, the pass blocking needs work, and I think that's almost the precautionary for Drake May. You don't want him to get hurt, and you don't want him to get sacked so many times that he can't make a read or make a throw. So that's the only thing why I like Brissett right now. I think a couple weeks into the season is good for Drake May to learn, and, you know, by week 5 or 6, if, you know, Gerard Mayo thinks Drake May is ready, then I think that is the time. Getting back to this game, I really, you know, like Pat said, looking at the line, you know, you get the Jets -6 right now. They opened up at 6.5. So, you know, you see some public trends with the Patriots and the spread. You look at the first 2 games the Patriots played, and it's almost like, in my opinion, it's almost like the same game script. Like, they ran the ball an awful lot, and that helped them win against Cincinnati. And we should have beaten Seattle if Joey Slye didn't get blocked on that field goal. You know, this is a big divisional game for the Patriots. One of the only primetime games that the Patriots are going to be getting this year because of how awful they were projected to be. But I think it's safe to say that they've actually looked pretty good compared to what I think the NFL community thought they would be. And a team like the Jets that, you know, honestly, their start has been a little shaky. They played Tennessee. Yeah, they won in week 2, but they lost in week 1 to San Francisco, and San Francisco didn't even have CMC. So you look at these things and, you know, you can say the Patriots have a chance. They definitely do in a big divisional game. But I think just the key points with the Patriots, if they want to win this game, they got to do the same thing that they did against Cincinnati, and they got to do the same thing they did against Seattle, which is you got to be able to run the football against this Jets team. And looking at the Jets defense, they give up a lot of rushing yards this year through the first 2 games and touchdowns. You know, they're in the top 10.
Yeah, this is the Jets team that was projected coming into the year top 5 defense. They are ranked 25th of the 32 right now. They've already given up 700 yards just in 2 games. So that is definitely a major problem. And on the flip side of things, we were coming in thinking that the Patriots defense was definitely going to have more of a better season than the offense, at least at the beginning. They're top 5 right now, cut the yards in half. Well, actually, they've given up 580, which still isn't too bad. You know, you shut down a Bengals team, rough week at home against the Seahawks. But again, they've had no blowouts, and they have plenty of film to work off of. I think the defense is done very well for the Patriots, especially with losing Judon. You've seen many guys step up. The one thing I'd like to see tonight, or at least in the next coming weeks, is the turnovers. We got to see a couple interceptions. I mean, the Patriots have used plenty of draft picks, especially during the Bill Belichick era, but plenty of draft picks on the secondary. They've invested money into that. We got to see Aaron Rodgers throw a pick tonight. We need a momentum shift on the road. And so I do think tonight's the night. The Pats will get that first pick, and it's a road game. So, that is huge. You got to get turnovers when you're on the road, switch the momentum. Everyone in there, it's going to be a hostile environment. This is a rivalry, although the Patriots are 18-2 in their last 20 games against the Jets, which is good, but it's a new time now. Rodgers is there. He's on his last legs. The Patriots are kind of just winging it every single week. So, we definitely want to see this team progress and get better each week. But with the turnovers and the veterans out there on defense, we got to see some of that, I think. And tonight, prime time, whole world watching is a great opportunity for us.
Yeah, and then you just take into consideration the division that we play in. And when you look at the AFC East, I don't think anyone expected the AFC East to look the way it does right now. I know we're only 2 weeks in, but if you really think about it, this division is wide open, believe it or not. I mean, you have Miami without Tua now yet again, so you don't know what's going to go on there. And then you have Buffalo, who I personally didn't think was going to be that good of a team this year. I thought they were going to be like an 8-9 team, or like a 9-8 team, like somewhere around 500. That, because of all the weapons they lost on offense, and they actually lost on defense too. So, but they've looked really good. So right now, with Miami's problems, and then you look at the Jets' struggles. I know they're 1-1, but you look at the way they've played the first two games, and all this hype talk about Rodgers coming back and this defense, and it's not like they're in the top 5 across the board. They still have work to do. Their games have been sloppy, and they're nowhere near where their fans in the NFL community projected them to be. So I think that can kind of explain this line movement a little bit. When the Jets opened up at 6.5, and now people are, the line's down to 6. I think that a lot of the public is looking at the Patriots and saying, wow, they're actually not like Carolina. They're not like the Giants. And they're actually coming out and looking like they can run an offense. Like, the Patriots offense looks completely different than last year. I know they're running the football a lot, but what people have failed to realize is we got Van Pelt from Cleveland, and he worked with Jacoby last year. So Brissett actually knows this playbook. And I think that if the key to the game for the Patriots tonight is going to be the game script. They just need to stay in a positive game script. All they have to do is do what they did against Cincinnati. They got to run the football. They can't turn it over. They've done good so far at not turning the ball over. Even though our defense isn't getting turnovers, our offense is not turning the ball over, which is good. As long as we can get 3 points out of most of our drives, I think we definitely have a chance to cover. But just moving into the betting a little bit and just talking about the line and the over-under, something tells me I got a weird feeling about the line. And I think that this could be the game that Jets really open things up for them. This could be a game where the public really thinks that the Patriots have a chance to cover here. That could turn out to be Rodgers airing it all over the place on the Patriots defense, considering our passing defense is what we're struggling with right now. If you look at Seattle's game last week against us, I mean, Metcalf and Smith and Jigba were putting up crazy numbers on our corners. They blew the top off the defense. You saw DK's touchdown last week, and you saw Jigba get 10 plus catches for over 100 yards. I mean,
and the big plays too. I mean, this is never usually a team that gives up the deep play. Occasional long runs, 20, 25-yard runs. Every team does that, but you don't usually see a team just in 1 or 2 plays just get down the field against the Pats. They've always been a team that they'll give up points, but you're going to have to earn them. And that DK touchdown was obviously a broken play, but I would say Seattle, especially in the overtime, absolutely earned it. And they kind of, they just went back to the basics, just dumping it off. They went to Tyler Lockett twice on that drive, which he's been there for forever. So, they have DK Metcalf running all over the field. Obviously, you're going to have 2 on him. And then Smith and Jigba, who had a huge game and all of a sudden here's Lockett, who's been doing this for, over a decade probably. I'm not 100% sure how many years he has, but
around there.
so they have options, and that's a team that Seattle definitely relies on their offense rather than their defense, I would say. Looking at this line, like Copell was saying, it is 6. The over/under jumps from 37.5 to 38.5. Looking at this, the Jets are at home, and you're thinking, this is the year that they are really supposed to jump over the hoop, and like you were saying, the division's wide open. Buffalo, I mean, I think Shakir is probably their best receiver. Miami right now with Tua, you don't even know who's going to be starting next week. And when you have Rodgers back there, it's like this guy has seen it all. He's been capable of everything, and they feel like they have a strong enough defense that can at least get them to the playoffs. But I don't know. I mean, week 3, we haven't seen a whole lot of good against the Jets. I know last week, they had Braylon Allen, had an excellent game. Breece Hall, doing his thing, and they got the offense clicking. But, I mean, that's a Titans team that I really think is going to be horrible. I think they're going to be bottom of the barrel. I think 6 points is a lot, even though they're at home. Patriots have bared down. The Seahawks, they lost, but that's no cakewalk. And Bengals, tough start to the season for them, but they're going to be in the playoffs. Everyone knows that. Pats have been able to stay in the games. They've been threatening the 2 opponents that they've played. And today, the Pats have just had the Jets number. I mean, the Jets have so much more to prove. I think 6 is a lot. And as far as the over-under, it's low. People are probably thinking the under. The Patriots aren't expected to score a lot of points. It's Jacoby Brissett. I do think that, the Jets definitely saw some things on their offense last week. And the Pats, I mean, they put up 16 in a low-scoring game in week 1. Ramondre ran the ball for 130 yards. They probably could have punched in another TD if they were a bit more aggressive on offense. And last week they put up 20 points. I like this over-under tease down to 31, and I'm going to take the Pats plus 13.5 too. I think there's just no way that the Jets win this by 2 touchdowns. I don't see it. The Patriots defense is too good, but we'll see. It's a divisional matchup, so it'll probably be a close game.
I really like that teaser, Pat. I think that's the right play because you can look at all the sports stats that you want, but once you get into the betting industry a little bit, you start to realize that what the public does is a big telltale sign. That over/under line change, I'm actually very surprised that line didn't move down. Like the recognition that these 2 teams get, I feel like as defensive teams, they're not. Especially the Patriots, you wouldn't consider them like an offensive team. Like they're always there defensively. And then with the Jets, I mean, yeah, they got Rodgers, who is one of the best quarterbacks ever to play. But yeah, I think with a line set that low and with 2 teams who, if you really think about it, man, if the Patriots lost the first 2 games, it'd be a completely different story. And I think that with the way the season has gone so far, especially for the AFC East division in general, for the 4 teams that play in that division, I think that it's not how a lot of people thought it would shape up to be. So I think that it kind of gives us a little bit of a different perspective here. And that's why I like that you're alternating the over down, because I could see this game going over. A lot of people like this game to go under. When you have a team like the Jets that are trying to prove themselves to the world, and you have the Patriots they say to themselves, wow, I mean, we were counted out before we even played a snap, and now we're at 1-1 heading into a primetime game against the divisional opponent. We're playing with house money here. We got nothing to lose. There's a lot of reasons why you could love the over. For a game where the line is set pretty low for an over-under, I think that it's an opportunity that we should definitely cash in on. And I think the idea of teasing it is even better, Pat, because when you get the spread to go down to 13.5 with that, I think you're really looking at profit there. You're ensuring yourself that if the Jets for some reason decide to, take off today on offense, you're protecting yourself with the extra points. And I think that's a very smart bet to do. And I really like that teaser a lot. And I think that can give us some insight into how this game is going to go.
We're talking about the over. We're talking about Pats covering. I mean, props. There's going to be touchdown scores. We're going to take a look at some of the props that we like tonight, some of the players that have definitely been a spark to their team. And I think first off, there's only one player. Both me and you know exactly who it is. All of New England knows Ramondre Stevenson. This guy was an excellent draft pick. He's out of Arkansas, running back. He's been the best player probably on the roster all season long, at least on the offense. Ran for 120, 125 yards against Cincinnati last week again. Another heavy workload. This guy is an absolute beast. He takes crazy hits and just gets up and runs 3 more times in a row. And yes, running back is one of the most gritty positions in the sport. But for a team that relies on him so heavily, and he just goes out and he's just a bulldozer. So, looking at his yards, it's about 60, which is, reasonable. A safer play here is taking 15 rush attempts. He's hit that in both his games this year. Also hit that in all 3 career games against the Jets. We're expecting the Pats to just run the ball, especially if they get a lead here. We saw it against Cincinnati. We even saw it last week against the Seahawks because we were leading in the fourth quarter for a bit. We're going to lean on Ramondre. So I absolutely love him to get 15 rush attempts. I've taken this a couple times this year already, and it's done me well, so we're going to keep riding it. That's the first leg of our build a parlay here.
Speaking of running backs, actually, I want to touch on the other Patriots running back that I think would be a perfect leg to add to this parlay, and that's going to be Antonio Gibson, where I have his line right now on FanDuel at 22.5 rushing yards, which seems like a pretty good bet. And the reason I like this bet is because if you take a look at his week that he had against Seattle last week, he had 11 carries for 96 yards on the ground, and this guy was brought in to be the pass-catching back, but we've actually seen more work in the pass-catching game from Ramondre. It's interesting to see that. So this line at 22.5 seems like an absolute steal. It felt like Antonio Gibson was running through everybody last week. We can't act like Seattle doesn't have a good defense because their defense is run by the guy who had the number 1 defense in Baltimore last year. So that team is very good, and I think, when you look at the Jets defense, we already mentioned earlier in this video that their defense is the 9th most in rushing yards given up this year and 9th most in rushing touchdowns given up. Whether it's Ramondre or Antonio Gibson, I mean, you guys are going to see both these guys on the field at some point tonight. And I think Gibson, he will only need 2 or 3 holes to, get 22.5 rushing yards. His rushing attempts are also around 5 or 6. So if you get that number or get that line anywhere, those are also extremely, extremely good lines, especially if you take Ramondre 15 plus attempts. I think Gibson's anywhere from 5 to 7 attempts is a steal as well. I think the value is extremely excellent there.
Looking at the Jets side of things, you could go Garrett Wilson, you could go Breece Hall, but that's what everyone's going to go. You got to feel like Vegas kind of jacks those lines up a little bit high. Not the best stats against the Pats as well for them, but we did find a hidden gem in there, Copell, if you want to take it away.
Yeah, and that man, as sure as most of you know, is Allen Lazard, the receiver. And, he was a guy that Rodgers asked for, and his line for his receptions right now is at 2.5, which seems like an absolute steal considering he's gotten 11 targets over the last 2 games alone. So to start the season, Rodgers is finally healthy, and you're seeing him target him that much, especially against the team where, Garrett Wilson's going to get a lot of attention. Gonzalez is probably going to be lined up on him. This seems like a perfect line for Allen Lazard to get 2.5 receptions. And while you're there, you might as well look at his receiving yards. And if you're taking him to get 3 catches, 28.5 receiving yards doesn't seem like that bad. And it doesn't seem like a lot. And I think that's another line that you should take, especially if you're going to ride up his receptions, because Aaron Rodgers has an arm on him. And even though he's older, he still throws that ball. And 28.5 receiving yards, he exceeded that by a lot in the game against San Francisco. And then he had a couple of receptions in the game against Tennessee. So when you look at his stats, I mean, this seems like a game, especially if it's a game where people expect the Jets to open them up the offense at home, and they can really get that offense running. It feels like Lazard could be a perfect safety net option for Rodgers tonight, and his line seems like one we have to take.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. We already saw Lazard have a couple of touchdown catches. Allen Lazard over 2.5. We're going with that for leg number 3. Leg number 4 gets a little bit interesting. We're actually flipping the defensive side of the ball here. We're taking Keon White to get a sack. It's definitely an interesting pick. He has been one of the best defensive players this year. Definitely the best defensive player in the Pats. But with no Matthew Judon there, someone needed to step up, and he has done absolutely that. He had 2.5 sacks week 1 against the Bengals, getting Burrow, 1.5 last week. So he's a guy that just lunch pail. I mean, he just shows up even when the defense is kind of getting shredded by, top receivers. He's still finding a way to get to a Geno Smith, who's a guy that can move, and a Burrow as good as he is. Keon White making plays for the defense. So that is even at 1 sack. So Keon White is the fourth leg of our parlay tonight.
I just want to touch on that too, just really quickly, because Keon White has had a phenomenal start. And like you said, without Judon there, it's extremely important that we have an edge rusher, because we never really get big name edge rushers. And we get a guy like Keon White who is just tearing it up. I think with an older, I know that they have a couple prospects, but with a little bit of an older offensive line for New York, I really like that tonight against the Jets.
For the fifth pick, we were looking at plenty of stuff. You could take an under on a Patriot receiver, but it's too confusing. Hunter Henry had a great game last week. Doesn't have the best numbers against the Jets. We're expecting him to get the ball plenty tonight. So for our fifth leg, we're going to take a touchdown score. We're expecting the Pats to get in the end zone, hopefully several times, but at least once tonight. It's going to be Ramondre Stevenson at -110 tonight for the fifth leg. There's going to be a lot of running. Breece Hall is definitely going to get involved one way or another, but the Pats have relied too heavily on the run. Ramondre scored in both games so far. He's getting respect from Vegas. He is minus odds, so we think he's definitely going to score. And the way the Patriots have shown that they can move the ball down the field, whether it's not the prettiest way, it's not a 60-yard bomb to the house, but they've grinded out both the defenses that they've faced so far. And Ramondre, the workhorse, he's going to get in the end zone and hopefully help the Pats pick up a road victory tonight.
We'll see how that game goes, but it's going to be a good one, a big divisional game. And like Pat said, there's a chance the Patriots could be above 500 after week 3, which is crazy. And I don't think anyone expected us to do that. So we'll see. It's going to be an excellent game, whether you're a Jets fan, a Patriots fan, or just a football fan. It should be a good game for Thursday Night Football tonight.
Before this weekend comes out, we are going to be covering the Sunday slate and the 2 Monday games as well. So stay tuned for that. Thanks for listening, guys, and we're going to keep this thing going.